Okay, Frank Bonada here for LowKick MMA. Joining me today on his debut appearance on the show, the preview show, it's Mr. Tim Wheaton. We're breaking down UFC Fight Night, Kattar versus Allen. How are you doing today, my friend?
Man, Frank, you know me, hanging out, doing the job, the usual stuff. Man, let me tell you, it's great being the guest. I'm always the host when I'm on show, so it's great that someone just pitches me questions, and I'm like, man, I come off looking smart and stuff. So I'll try to ask questions back to you because I know how it feels when you're like, oh, I guess we'll move on. My guest
Yeah.
doesn't want to talk about it. Crap.
Well, I mean, let me pitch you this first question.
Yeah.
What do you make of this card? Just a surface read. Yeah. What was your initial reaction to looking at the lineup we've got going?
The fight that we are excited about, the fight that we're looking at, is a well-matched fight by just looking at names and rankings. And of course, that's a headlining fight. When we dig a little deeper, it's actually kind of a rough matchup. However, we'll get into that. But looking at the card overall, like this is there's a pretty steep drop off. Even for like some of the degenerates like us who do watch all the Dana White Contender Series or do watch like LFA in our free time or do watch like CFFC. This is a rough one. And like this is just kind of what we're doing with Apex cards at this point. Like you tune in for the main event and then you'll kind of catch the pay-per-view. But yeah, it is a card for people like you and I.
Yeah.
What do you think of it? What do you make of it?
Yeah, no, I mean, exactly the same boat. A huge fan of that main event, but
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there is that sort of narrative that sometimes these cards that you don't expect to be great, pick up some amazing finishes and performances and whatnot. Fingers crossed. That's what we get with this one.
Yeah.
I want to get stuck straight into that main event though, because this is the sort of the big talking point in this fight. Calvin Kattar, Arnold Allen. I mean, it's a brilliant heavyweight matchup. Might have lost a little bit of the I don't know, importance surrounding the fight, considering Volkanovski looks like he's going to be fighting Islam Makhachev next. Otherwise this is like almost definitely a number one contender, or maybe the winner goes and fights for an interim title or something. We don't know. I just really want to see Arnold Allen fight for a title, but it's a banging fight. 5 rounds. These guys, they don't typically get finished. They both have great cardio. They swing hard, and they're both strikers. This is a chance for Arnold Allen to he's fought a lot of sort of grappler wrestlers in his career. Fights often go to the ground, but Kattar, he's going to stand there at swing and bang, and Arnold Allen's going to have a chance to show if he's truly ready to be at the very top of this division.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But let me ask you before we jump into it, the Volkanovski's looking down the division, and his top contender is clearly Josh Emmett. If you were Alexander Volkanovski, what would your game plan? Like you're looking at Josh Emmett and think like that's maybe an easy fight, but I'm not going to risk it if there's a lightweight title there. Do you think Volkanovski made the right move by like trying to go up in weight class, or should he have fought Emmett as like maybe I think it's an easy defense for him. I don't want to be rude to Emmett in any way, but it is an easy defense for Volkanovski. But what do you make of that move?
Yeah, I mean, like let's be honest, Volkanovski is sort of levels above everyone else.
Yeah.
In the division right now, even Max Holloway, who was for so long the perennial number one at 145 pounds.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's a tough move up to fight Islam Makhachev at lightweight, considering the size disparity, and especially how Makhachev's how his size plays into his game plan, the wrestling heavy approach. I think that's going to be very rough for Volkanovski. But I mean, honestly, right now, looking at the entire lightweight and featherweight landscape, if anyone's going to beat Islam Makhachev, I think it could be Alexander Volkanovski. Honestly, I think that. I don't think who else, like Beneil Dariush, is that the guy you're holding that hope for? Sayuki maybe.
Beneil's not that good. I think it has to be the Justin or Dustin. And I hate to be rude to Beneil. He's fine, but it has to be like Justin or Dustin. But like I think both of those guys might be a little bit past their prime at this point. Like we're still not. I still think of Dustin as like how he was 2 or 3 years ago. Justin as he was 2-3 years ago. I don't think either of them are like that anymore. I think Islam Makhachev became champion at an opportune time to look extremely dominant. Someone like Sean Sherrick almost had the same kind of benefit of like you're fighting guys who are a little bit over the hill. And you look good doing it. You know what I mean? But yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a rough fight for Volkanovski, but hell, take it. If you can do a champ versus champ showdown, that puts your name on the map.
Exactly. Yeah, he's already the number one pound for pound. Go up, take 2 belts, come back down, defend. You're locking yourself into that sort of GOAT conversation at that point. So more power to him. But yeah, go on.
Yeah.
I want to get your read on Kattar versus Allen.
Yeah. Well, like I was saying, like on paper, this is a good matchup. This is a great name versus another good name. Both guys kind of like 5 and 6 in the rankings or something like that, 4 and 5 in the rankings. But when you do a little bit closer inspection, like this should be a bit of a blowout for Arnold Allen. Calvin Kattar is a very meat and potato striker. He's a good striker. He's a jab setup, orthodox striker. And doing tape study before we jumped on, I think he was never a very creative striker. He wasn't doing things out of the ordinary. He was just like jab, 1-2, kick, defend kind of thing. And over time, I think he's actually gotten less creative. He's not adding new folds to his game. Now, he is a good striker. I'll absolutely, he's very technical and very sound. People have trouble against him. He's also very pressure heavy. He's always controlling the center and pushing his opponents to the back. And that's why over 5 round fights, people struggle with against him. He has not fought an actual natural southpaw in the UFC. Giga Chikadze was the only switch fighter that he faced. Other than that, it's been orthodox. So we don't have a ton of notes on how he will do against Arnold Allen, the southpaw. He has very clear weaknesses in that he turtles up on defense rather than moving his feet. In MMA, like I'm sure you've covered it before, but like you want to move your feet back because whether it's an uppercut or a jab or a takedown or a clinch, moving your feet is the right thing to do. When you turtle up, you might be doing the wrong thing because it might be something else. All he does is turtle up. And because of it, he's very hittable. Not even including the Max Holloway fight. He's a super hittable fighter. And against a guy like Arnold Allen, I think this is a bad fight for Calvin Kattar. Like Arnold Allen, strong, powerful, slick. He's fast. He's kind of all the things. He's on like a 9-fight win streak in the UFC. He's all the things that you really want to be as a developing fighter. And now he is recovering from a hand injury. He has not been in a 5-round fight. Facing a pressure-heavy fighter against Kattar, that's where this fight's really going to be battled in the 4th and 5th round if it gets that far. But I don't know if Allen's going to allow it to get that far. I genuinely think he wins by TKO. But Frank, I think you might have some bias in this one. But how do you square it up? How do you see it going?
Yeah, look, like initial read, not even a read, just like I see the matchup, I'm like, yeah, my guy's got this, my guy Allen. Honestly, Arnold Allen, one of the nicest guys in the game. I remember I interviewed him a while back. He was well, he was like ranked 10th or something. I wasn't working for any big promotions at the time, and he still gave me the time of day. Interviewed him for 20 minutes. Storm cuts in, all the footage is removed. He jumps back on an interview, records the whole thing again with me 20 minutes later. Arnold Allen is, like at that point, he made me like a fan for life. But like don't get me wrong, I'm also a huge Calvin Kattar fan. He's an exciting action fighter. I mean, I feel like you've been a bit harsh saying that he hasn't added any new wrinkles. Like, look at this fight with Chikadze, like the utilization of the elbows within that fight, I thought was a very sort of interesting, added caveat to his game. And that gave Chikadze so much trouble. And he has
the same elbows that he was using against Jeremy to knock out Jeremy Stevens, right? Like something that we saw from him like 2 years ago, had success, a little bit of a plateau. I don't know. Again, stop me when I'm wrong. It's this is opinion based work, and I probably am being too harsh, but sorry, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I feel like the fact that he's using it as almost as regularly as a jab or something like that is the added caveat. He's always been lethal with them, and yes, of course, the Stevens one is what comes to mind, but I feel like that he is still growing to an extent. But at the same time, he's a veteran of the game. He knows what his style is. He knows what he does. He's proved time and time again that he can compete for an extended period of time. He can go 5 rounds. We know that definitely. Can Arnold Allen do that? We don't know. Looked amazing against Dan Hooker, but he got dropped to one knee in those exchanges, and the clip that he's unloading in that fight. I mean, he's a great. His strength and conditioning is great. His cardio has looked great, but there's no way you can do that for 5 rounds. But then the thing is does Arnold just wrestle? Does he just grapple him, clinch him up? I think that's something that could be a big avenue to victory in this fight for him. Go on.
No, that was something. No, we had Mike Owens interview Calvin Kattar's coach, and that was one thing that he was almost hinting at, is that this might be a little bit more wrestling based. That was one of the notes I had here as well. Of what if he just wrestles? Now, Arnold Allen has had really good takedown defense. He's worked well in counter clinching and things like that. So I haven't seen him a ton on the ground. I forget the one fight. I'll try to bring it up here.
He submitted Mads Bennell.
Yeah, it was in the Mads Bennell fight where you really saw him like he's very
But
good
well, he was
like
losing
yeah.
that fight until he subbed him. So
Yeah, true.
but
Mads Bennell and what was the other one there? He was wrestling a lot, like Nick Lentz. I think he was wrestling a bit. Mads Bennell, maybe Amir Khani, but like he has shown,
mm.
especially for an English fighter, that he's fine at wrestling. Now, for this one, do you know is he at BKK or is he at TriStar coming into this one?
He's not a TriStar. He's training across the UK right now. But yeah,
Oh,
he's doing. I think it's like half camps with Leon and those guys, and then yeah, I do remember seeing an interview. Yeah, he's training across the UK right now, but he's not a TriStar.
interesting. So yeah, the wrestling might be a massive factor, and that's one place where do we have a like how good is Arnold Allen at wrestling at counter
Mm,
wrestling? From what we've seen, it's pretty good, but it's against guys maybe not as skilled as Calvin Kattar. I think
yeah,
that is a path to victory. Like, do you think that's an exploitable weakness in Arnold Allen's game?
I don't know. And that's my honest answer. Like,
Yeah.
it's just an interesting caveat that could come out into this fight. Like you said with Tyson Chartier when he was talking to Mike Owens,
Mm.
he described this fight as a boxer grappler versus a boxer wrestler, essentially, with the
Mm.
grappler being Arnold and the wrestler being Calvin, which I do think is interesting. One thing I keep hearing about Arnold Allen is his strength, right? He's insanely strong. People say, I can't remember who it was as a podcast I listened to recently, but they said they gave Arnold Allen a hug and it felt like his back was made out of marble.
He's big. He
Yeah,
is good size for this weight class, isn't he?
yeah. And then look at like when he's out of camp, right? His dad's a strongman, former MMA fighter turned strongman, or lifetime strongman. His brother's like regional strongman champion. His hobbies outside of camp is powerlifting, weightlifting. The man is jacked. He's going to be so strong, so well conditioned that I don't know. I feel like maybe Kato is going to try to start, enter those sort of maybe wrestling or clinch exchanges, and I do think Allen might surprise him in those areas of the game. So I don't really think it's a side one. Well, no, I not don't think I don't know if it's one side or the other is going to be able to exploit the fight in that area. But I think it's something that could happen, and I'm very interested to see how it plays out.
Well, and Arnold Allen is in the right division if you are a person who doesn't love wrestling. Like for some reason, in the
Yeah,
top 10 of featherweight, there's just no wrestlers in that division.
Emmett.
However, yeah,
Yeah,
Emmett is the guy. That's what I mean. But I think, man, Emmett would lose so bad to Arnold Allen on
yeah,
feet.
I
Just picturing this quick in my head.
agree.
But yeah, if you're, I think cage time and if he gets in some wrestling practice in his match, that would be really beneficial to his career. I think cage time is a very important thing to slightly younger and developing fighters. But
Yeah.
I genuinely do think this is a coming out party for Arnold Allen. It's a
Mm.
main event slot. It's at a good time. It's on ESPN, all that stuff. I think this is a good one for him. What's next for him? Is it an Emmett fight? Does he wait out for the title? Like it's there's only a few guys ahead of him now.
Yeah, I like that fight.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That
That's a
would be a lot of
banger.
fun. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, maybe a title, like possibly pay-per-view event in the UK coming up soon in Cardiff. Maybe an interim title, anything like that. Like there's a good few options, but yeah, unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be a title shot next for him. Just the way the landscape is playing out. But um, I don't see why they shouldn't do an interim title.
Yeah.
Why not? Or at least like one of those, when Dana White comes out and says this is the number one contender fight, this fight, whoever fight wins it, they're going on to fight Volkanovski next. But yeah, this is the one. This is the one. I personally kind of envisioning a 5-round decision
Yeah.
fight. I think Allen can pick up sort of big moments throughout the fight, big sort of round winning moments. But Cater, like I said before, he is sort of wily veteran, and you know, even though he does turtle up and stuff, he's so durable. He can take
Yeah.
so much punishment. And people are saying, oh, the beating that Max Holloway gave him is going to add up, but it doesn't look like it's going to. He took everything Josh Emmett could throw him, and Emmett, he may not be the most well-rounded fighter, but the man has a right hand from God. He launches that thing with pure venom, and yeah, sort of Cater's getting knocked around the ring a bit by it, but he's not going down. He's carrying on. He's shaking it off, and if you're surviving shots from right hands from Josh Emmett, you can't be saying that man's chin is gone, because yeah, it's quite clearly not.
Yeah, that's like a superhuman toughness. The guy's got a head made of cement. Like it doesn't make mathematical sense. You know
Mm,
what I mean? This just doesn't add up at all. He's got those amazing qualities of like Mark Hunt and just like
yeah,
guys like
yeah.
that we look up to of like, man, you can take a hit and just keep coming. But maybe that's not like what we really want to say for a championship caliber of like, man,
Mm,
you can really take punches to the
yeah.
face. Amazing. I don't know.
It's
But
you
yeah,
what you want from an elite gatekeeper. That's the perfect quality.
he's a great gatekeeper. No, yeah, I see Allen winning. I did pick TKO, but yeah, kind of talking to you, maybe that is like an impossible task. It would be a massive statement to win by TKO, but I think we're unanimous on an Arnold Allen pick
Yeah,
one way or another.
100%. Yeah, the TKO that's a stamp of authority on the
Yeah.
division. Like at that point, you're no longer, oh, is this guy a fringe contender? Nah, you are like in the
You were the
mix, in the
man.
thick of it. Yeah, you're the man at that point. Yeah.
I know that you're a bit of a better. Did any good lines on this one, or did you avoid betting on
Yes.
this one? Yeah,
I
tell me
so I
about it.
did, right? I as basically UK lines are a bit different to the US ones,
Mm.
and they come out at different times and whatnot. But we did get Arnold Allen a couple weeks ago, and he came in as an underdog plus 170. I got that straight away. The
Plus
line,
170. It's
yeah,
close.
the line has now switched with Allen being the favorite now, Kate being the underdog. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about that. And you know, if you want to follow sort of well, at least my line of viewing this fight, I think you can get Arnold Allen by decision at something like plus 270 odd. So yeah, I mean that's enticing line. I'm not going to take it. I'm going very light on this card, but Arnold Allen just straight getting as an underdog. I'll take that all day long.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good one there. All right, that's all I got on that one. I think
Yep,
it's a banger. It's a good
it's
main
a
event.
it's an excellent main event, and yeah, and here's the drop off. Tim Means versus Max Griffin in the co-main event. You know what? No, it's not a bad fight. I don't want to be too sort of discredit it too much. But I mean, it's not great. It's not really. It's not even the fight that should be the co-main event, in my opinion, on this card. But yeah, Tim Means the Dirty Bird. Yeah, true veteran of the game. Been around for an absolute minute now. 32, 13 and 1 record. He's taking on Max Payne Griffin, who is bizarrely 36, which just doesn't seem to make sense to me. Yeah, well, still 2 years younger than Tim Means. Yeah, interesting fight. Griffin's has opened the favorite. I don't know. I find it hard to have a set read for this one as I did for the main event. Yeah, I mean Griffin hits pretty hard, but Means is the epitome of I've said it again, but the wily veteran sort of I don't know, meta. He knows how to win a fight, even if it's a split decision win. You know, he knows how to drag it out. Um, he's got some nice boxing. His takedowns are surprisingly efficient. I feel like people look at him and look at his highlight packages and whatnot, and they don't really view him as much of a wrestler, but he can do that if he has to, especially when rocked. It's one of his sort of favorite tactics is if he gets clipped, pushed back, he will shoot in, make it dirty, make it grindy, and find a way to sort of turn the fight around. He does that quite often. Max Griffin, yeah, he's the. I don't know. I just don't really know what is his ceiling. He's 36 years old, nearly 37, 36 years, 11 months old. Like
Yeah.
I feel like people view him as a bit of a prospect, but like I don't know. I feel like he's reached his ceiling, and maybe he does beat Means, but I feel like it's a very close fight no matter what. Yeah, probably another split decision to either side. I find it hard to have a set read on it. What's your view, mate?
No, cosign. My first note here is there's actually just too many variables to really
Yeah.
make a bold prediction. What my second note is bettors shouldn't bet on this one.
Mm,
There's too much like empty space where we've seen maybe a strength from this guy for a little bit for the early part of it. Like these guys have been in the UFC since 2012 and 2016. They're not like up and
mm,
comers. You know what I mean? The winner leaves town and the loser leaves town kind of fight we might be looking at here. But like there's just too many variables. Like yeah, in one point, this guy clearly looks good at doing this, and then the next fight he's losing
yeah.
at the same thing kind of thing. I don't know. Like Tim Means, I think, is a little bit more technical in what I'm looking for when I'm looking at like fight history, where he's very controlling in the center, setting everything up in the jab. He's a little bit more aggressive. Matt Griffin throws with very heavy counters.
Mm.
And like, I don't know, whoever wants to land first might just win the whole entire fight. This could be a terrible grinding performance, or this could be a first
Yeah.
round knockout. It could be a banger. I really have no idea. And despite having a lot of tape on these guys, it's kind of crazy to come away from a fight and just say, who knows? This is wild.
No idea. Yeah, honestly, I would not be surprised if we lose an entire round. Just like means pushing Griffen up against the cage, two men switching around, switching positions and whatnot. I would not be surprised for a second. And then maybe the next round Max comes out and knocks Means out. Maybe.
Yeah.
But you know, it is one of those.
Yeah, that's all I got for it. It's a weird one.
Me too. Let's not stick around on it because there's no point. Like it, yeah, it could be a fun fight, but also it might not be. Yeah, we'll move on to the next fight. Waldo Cortez Acosta versus Jared Vanderaa. This is another one where like I've got a place in my heart for Jared Vanderaa. The man's always given so much time for interviews and whatnot. He's probably one of my most interviewed fighters of the last 2 years. Like always takes time out to speak and whatnot. But this is his last chance. There's no two ways around it. Like 4-fight losing streak. He's managed to stay active this year. This will be his 4th fight of 2022. But he's lost all 3 fights this year and plus a fight to Romanov the year before. I mean, yeah, he's fought some half decent opposition. Romanov, like no one ever thought Vanderaa was going to win that fight. Romanov's just an absolute monster who anyone outside the top 15, probably outside the top 10 even, he's just going to crush. Arlovsky, it was a close fight, split decision. I'll be honest, I did score it for Arlovsky, but Jared made it competitive. The two men went back and forth. Olenek, I think that was a short notice step in for Vanderaa.
Also, Olenek is like super good. Like he is genuinely good.
Right. You know what though? I do love Vanderaa, right? But his fight IQ seems a bit off sometimes when like against guys like Chase Sherman. Vanderaa's a much better grappler than Chase Sherman. Much better. He's a black belt. And he just decides to stand and trade for the full fight and then gets knocked out. But against Alexei Olenek, oh nah. Let's grapple with the boa constrictor.
I know.
What?
I know. Like Alexei Olenek is like it's like meeting Gordon Ryan and people like this in submission grappling competitions, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll take him down." Dog, what are you on about? What is this? Like, I just don't get it. This guy has like the worst kind of game plans, and like you said, I do like Jared, nice guy. Bro, what are you doing in this one? So we can assume in this one he's going to try to bang against the undefeated Salsa Boy. Is that correct?
Yeah. Former pro boxer.
Yeah.
They're not a very successful former pro boxer, but I mean, like last 3 fights, Acosta has won via KO. There are some interesting sort of variables to this fight. Jared's made the switch to King's MMA, which is a very solid gym. It sounds like they've really been pushing him to go that step further. So that brings me hope. And who's it? It's Cordero, isn't it?
Really good gym.
Really good gym. And surely Cordero is going to make sure he utilizes the full extent of his arsenal against Salsa Boy. I've only just seen that his nickname Salsa Boy.
I love it. I'm never gonna pick against Salsa Boy. His nickname's Salsa Boy. I love this man.
But it is interesting because remember Jared Vanderaa, the way he made his way to the UFC was through the Contender Series. Cortez is coming off that KO victory on the Contender Series. This could be a changing of the guard potentially. There's a lot of interesting sort of dynamics. I think I'm going to back Jared Vanderaa just because I think he has all the tools to beat Waldo Cortez Acosta. The question is just, does he? Does he utilize them?
Yeah, and that's a great question. I don't know what the actual answer is because heavyweights are really odd. Like any heavyweights, even outside the top 10, like we're talking about a guy who might have no wrestling versus a guy who may refuse to use his wrestling, or just a guy brawls him to death. Like heavyweight is just a weird division, and this is a very heavyweight centric fight. I am going to pick Salsa Boy. He throws punches like he's pitching a baseball. He's got so much power and he follows up. I don't know if he has a gas tank past around like minute 3. I have no idea. He probably doesn't. I don't know if he has any wrestling. Probably not. I just think he's got too much power, and I think this is a good setup match for him to like really show Maybe cracking into the top 10 a little bit, cracking into the top 15. But yeah, I think this is a good fight for our salsa boy.
Fair enough. We'll agree to disagree. Come on, Jared. Let's extend
Yeah.
that contract, man. Yeah. It should be a fun one at least, you know.
It'll be fun. Yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like I'm a little bit more invested than maybe some people, and maybe that's going to make it more entertaining for me. But
Yeah.
it's the
The
little
switch to
stories.
King's MMA, that
Yeah,
if you like Jared, that should give you some faith. That should absolutely give you some faith. That's a big change. That shows that he's still serious about the sport too.
yeah, 100%. And also, yeah, another thing, like I've spoken to him in the past. I think maybe like prior to, or I think it was the Olenek fight, and we talked about
Mm.
potentially life outside the UFC, and he was saying back then, if the UFC cut me after this, if I lose this fight, I'll probably just retire and become a bartender. And now I'm
Oh,
seeing him on media day being like, nah, you know what? Moving to Kings has changed my sort of like view on the sport. And looking to it, even if he does get cut, gets cut, I think he's going to carry on now and try work his way back to the UFC. He's only 30, remember? He's actually the younger fighter in
for a
this
heavyweight,
matchup.
that's a baby. That's an amateur for a
Yeah, it's a
heavyweight.
child.
That's a giant. He's got 12 more years before he's actually in his prime at that division.
Yeah, exactly. Let's move on. This is another fight. I honestly I haven't got a huge amount to say. Once again, it's not really a fight that I think should be on the main card, to be honest. But it's
No.
Tresan Gore versus
Mm.
Josh Fremd. Go on. What's your read on this one, mate?
Yeah, you got 0-1 versus 0-2. I think Gore's losses, I think they're a little bit worse losses. And honestly, like they're against lesser competition, and he often looks quite lost. Like I think he needs time outside of the UFC to really develop into his talents. I think
Yeah,
send him to a different league, working in CFFC or LFA would really do his career credit
yeah,
because he's talented. It's just he's not quite putting it all together. Whereas Fremd has one loss to Hernandez, and that's not an embarrassing loss. It was a well fought
yeah.
decision. So I think this is the Fremd fight I would pick just based on what I've seen of both of these men. But Gore is also one of those guys that might just surprise us and land an amazing knockout. What do you think?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Josh Fremd all the way. Again, I'm not betting on it or anything, but like, yeah, Gore's the guy who came out and said he's going to become a two division UFC champion when he was like 3-0 and then lost his first two UFC fights.
Yeah.
That fight with Brian Battle was absolutely horrendous. Like his buddy PlayStation controller was locked to only throwing the overhand right, and but that literally was it. That's all he threw
Yeah.
the whole fight, and Battle
Yeah.
didn't look amazing that fight, but he was
No.
landing, getting combination and variation of strikes, and that's what won him it. I don't know. Yeah, I hope. I don't know. He is like an athletic specimen, Gore,
Hmm.
and if he, I don't know what his background is in terms of martial arts, but like if he had more skills at his disposal, or maybe he has them, and it's like Vanderaa where he's not being willing to throw them. He's just relying on the massive power that he possesses. But I feel like he could be something good, but right now he's not. And yeah, Josh Friend, much more experienced fighter, decent showing against Fluffy
Yep.
Hernandez, who is turning out to be like one of the like low key bangers of the middleweight division.
Yeah. Not a
I
bad. Yeah. Not
yeah,
a bad
not a bad
loss.
loss at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. And I think Fremd can come in here. I think he can probably out wrestle Gore. I think he has more. Until Gore shows me more.
Yeah.
um, I just think yeah, fights against guys who have who aren't like single discipline fighters can just beat him, and I think that's exactly what will happen here. I think Trayson Gore's going to get cut from the UFC.
Yeah.
Um,
Which
and
is a
maybe
good thing. I think that's beneficial for his career. I think he should.
exactly
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go to LFA or something like that, and
Yeah.
build the resume, build your skills, um, and maybe come back and have another pop at it. So then, bizarrely, opening fight of the main card, which honestly it should be the co-main. Dustin Jacoby, Khalil Rountree. Yeah, like arguably the best non-main event fight. Well, no, not arguably. It is the best non-main
Yep.
event fight on the card. Dustin Jacoby's sort of storied glory kickboxing career. I think this is his second stint in the UFC now as well. And he's looked nothing short of incredible. He really has looked great. No, I'm a huge fan of the way he fights. And then, oh my god, Khalil Rountree, like bloody hell, the man is violence personified. He's just an absolute machine of a fighter who, he's one of those guys when people are like, oh, it's such a violent sport, whatever, and you're like, come on, no, there's so much technique. No, Khalil Rountree, he's the reason why people say that. Cracking fight. I absolutely love it. What's your read on this?
Man, yeah, that's I was gonna say for Khalil Rountree Jr. Do you remember Sherdogs? They used to do Team All Violence, and it was like Melvin Manhoff and like Cyborg and a bunch of other people. Man, Khalil Rountree Jr. would make the team. This guy is awesome, and he's one of those guys like you just love to watch fight because he does look like a violent. Like this is kind of one of the reasons that we do like this sport is that when it does get very barbaric, it's kind of cool. Now, when he is Bangkok ready, he is super effective. The problem is that I think I love Khalil Rountree Jr. and I like his career and I like his story and I like his talents, but I think he's very inconsistent. I think the last fight, if that was all you saw of him, this guy's a world beater. If you watch this fight, a couple fights before that, you think like, man, this guy's just like getting out of bed or something. Like, what's going on with this guy today? Dustin Jacoby, I think the thing is that he is a much better, much more experienced in the ways that you would want. He's fought like Alex Pereira in kickboxing. He was a great fighter in Glory kickboxing. Switching over to the UFC, he's found very good success and adjusting his style to like distance counters that you want from a kickboxer going to MMA. But I think this is a winnable fight for either guy, in all honesty. I think Khalil Rountree, the only problem is inconsistency. If he's at his best, he actually probably wins this fight. But I'm not willing to make that bet, is what I'm saying. So based on like more consistent, he shows up kind of the same every time. He shows up with the same talents. Probably going to say Dustin, but it's a great match. How do you see it playing out?
Yeah, I'll be real with you. I bet Dustin Jacoby at the start of the week. As a slight favorite. I think it's minus 160, something around that line. But then you know what? I was looking through Khalil's record, and there was one caveat that sort of gave me pause. Look at Khalil's record against Glory kickboxers so far. We've got Mr. Carl Robertson and we've got Gokhan Saki.
Yeah, it's 50-50. Man, the Gokhan, I forget. Whenever I think
won
of
both fights.
He did. He did. That's the thing. Whenever, sorry, not 50-50.
Yeah.
He won both fights. Whenever I remember that Gokhan Saki lost in the UFC, just like I'm a kickboxing background guy. Like it was MMA into kickboxing. So whenever I remember that Gokhan Saki got smoked, just breaks my little heart. Whenever I remember it. So yeah, he's undefeated against Glory kickboxers. That's rough.
But I do just think Jacoby has more going for him. His skill set, his striking is so clean. I absolutely love watching him fight. Like, and I think he's only getting better still as well in the UFC. So, yeah, it's weird though, isn't it? Because I would say naturally, like, I want to go for like a Jacoby decision, but like the violence that Rountree injects into a fight just sort of can potentially throw all of that sort of theorizing out the window. I do think Dustin Jacoby wins. I think he probably does win by decision. But maybe Rountree has a massive round 2 or something where maybe he even wins a 10-8 round because he's like got Jacoby on the ground and is just liver kicking him from like a half guard. I don't know, like the way he fights it's very hard to get a set read, but I do think Dustin Jacoby wins. Yeah,
and I think if it gives you any more faith, I do think Khalil Rountree is a little bit easier when you're not putting pressure on him. You give him time to work. He's a very good fighter, but someone like Dustin Jacoby is probably going to put a lot of pressure, a lot of feint jabs, a lot of jabs. And I don't think that's when Khalil starts getting shut down a little bit, and he like almost mentally doesn't come back. Of like you don't see a lot of like, stop me when I'm wrong, but like he doesn't have a lot of late fight rallies. Like if he's losing, he's just losing. If he's winning, he's winning. But he doesn't like. You know what I mean? Of like, if you push him back enough and he's losing, he's not going to recover from that. And kind of stuff like that made me think like, probably Dustin in this one. I agree with you. I co-sign.
Yeah. I think that's a good call. I do just remember like,
I know
it's just there's like the Modestus Bukauskas fight when he just stamped on the knee and I was like, oh my
holy
god,
shit.
That was bad.
Man.
Do you remember? Bloody Eric Anders as well, when Rountree went away to Thailand for a year and came back with like this Thai stance and like kicked his leg to pieces.
Man, he was literally just like it was so cool. And Eric Anders just had no answer for anything. He couldn't get anything going. But like, holy crap, that was awesome to see. But that's the thing of like, we're talking about, hey, he did that once, and then like next fight he's already doing something else. He's already moving on to the next thing. That's the stuff of like, but I saw like how talented you are at times. Why are you not that talented all the time in these fights? I really want to like you. I really want you to be a contender, but you need to believe in yourself a bit more, maybe. I don't know.
Isn't that a recurring theme in this
Yes.
this fight card so far, isn't it? We've got Khalil Rountree, Gore, and Jared Vanderaa back to back
Just
to
show
back.
up.
You can do it, man. Just yeah. But yeah, that it should be a fun main card. There is not really name value in there, let's be honest.
It's a banger though. Like up and down, every fight has potential for like being a fight of the year almost. Each one of these could be.
Come on, Jared Vanderaa versus what Acosta. Acosta fight of the year.
This is the crap you got to say when you're trying to work for a promotion. Like, I'm willing to sell your fight.
Yeah, all right, DC.
That's right. That's right. I've never seen either of these guys, but no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, that's you can tell like the language that someone uses based on like of like he's like fiery, he's explosive. Like you've never seen this guy fight, have you, DC?
Anyway. I'm just taking a look down the prelims as well now. Roman did say Phil Hawes, fun enough.
Sure.
Arlovsky's probably going to take Rogerio de Lima to a decision or get knocked out in the first round.
Sure.
We've got the Iron Turtle, who I'm quite a big fan of, taking on Joseph Holmes.
Love the man.
Yeah. Chase Hooper's fighting. That I like that they've sort of slowed his progression a bit now, and Steve Garcia isn't a particularly good opponent, so I feel like he should get another win there.
Yes.
Carlos Motta making the move over from LFA to fight Cody Durden on very short notice, flyweight fight.
Carlos Motta, was he the one who fought Charles Johnson, didn't he? Before Charles Johnson was in fighting. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
I believe so.
Carlos Motta is really good because that LFA was it LFA or CFFC? No, LFA versus Charles Johnson for the champion. That was an amazing fight. That was the fight where I was like, man, Johnson might be able to beat Muhammad Makayev.
Yeah.
And then it was a really good fight. It was a fun fight. But yeah, Motta's really good. He's going to be a top 10er in no time.
Let's hope so, yeah. It's short notice, but I mean, get a knockout over Cody Durden, you saw what it did to Muhammad Makayev. Like, take the rest of the top. And then Joshua Weems versus Christian Rodriguez, which I think is a short notice replacement. There are sort of some gems in there. I do think Chase Hooper, he looked so fun in his last fight. So much more like nasty, which is what I want to see from him. He's not, going away from the sort of, young. I don't know. He had this weird like Ben Askren child persona about him. But then last fight, he's filling out as well. So he's filling out. He's getting better, and he's learning to. When he grapples, it's not just jiu-jitsu anymore. It's MMA grappling. The ground and pound that he was dropping on. Oh, who was his last opponent?
Felipe?
Yeah, Felipe Colares. Yeah. It was brutal. He was like 10-8 in him, like with ease. At the same time, like rolling for heel hooks and leg locks whilst also delivering ruthless ground and pound. I there was a time when I was like, Chase Hooper's a complete hype job, and he should just be cut from the UFC. But now they have slowed his roll, and he's fighting some. I mean, let's be honest, he could be fighting Steve Garcia in LFA or CFFC or anywhere like that. It's just on the UFC undercard of a UFC Fight Night in Vegas. So,
And like this is the thing with younger fighters, and most younger fighters take their losses and take their knocks, fighting overseas or fighting in some organization that nobody's watching. And he's just doing his development in the UFC. Unlike a lot of like we were talking about Gore earlier, who I think needs to step away. I think Chase Hooper is actually right where he needs to be. He's not a top fiver right now, but he might develop into one. Like he's only 23 years old or something like that, and he's been in the UFC for almost 5 years at this point. Like that's actually quite impressive. And I know that like sometimes we crap on his record, but he's still developing. But yeah, him playing Frisbee with Ben Askren, I think actually helped his career. Like clearly, like you said, his wrestling is filling out. He's working with Ben Askren. I think that actually helped him out a lot. It was a big meme, but it worked.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more. Let's wrap things up then, because I mean, great debut performance from Tim here. Really glad to have you on, get you in front of the camera. for the first time, and hopefully not for the last. We'll keep this going. We've got a great sort of team now of mix of guests who are coming on. We've got Ross, Murdo, Patrick as well, and to add Tim to that roster is a great positive in my opinion.
Oh yeah, pumped to be with LowKick MMA. It's a well-respected community that we got here. I'm pumped to be here. And on-camera work, you know me. I'm just all about the attention.
100%. All right then, Tim. Where can people find you on social media, and also where can people find your writing and whatnot?
I got a ton of stuff going on. Check me out on Twitter and Instagram, Tim Wheaton MMA on both. I write for Sportskeeda, I write for LowKick MMA, I write for MMA Sucka. I work with Calf Kick Sports. For kickboxing, I work with Fighters First. I work with Beyond Kickboxing. I work with Vex Sport. Just wherever you think you're safe from me, I'll find you. Like, I'm everywhere. I do way too much. But yeah, Tim Wheaton MMA on Twitter and Instagram. Thanks for asking, Frank. And Frank, man, appreciate your time. Thanks for having me on, dude. It was a good talk.
Of course. No, of course, man. Yeah, it was. You know what? Chats like these, they turn these low level or low hype fight nights into something fun. So I feel like I've got a much more vested interest into these fights. So let's go, and we'll be back next week. UFC Fight Night. What is it, like Lemos versus Rodriguez, Marina Rodriguez. That was a fun fight. I believe we've got Daniel Rodriguez, Neil Magny on there as well. And then I believe it's 281, which is going to be an absolute banger. So subscribe to the channel. Go follow me, Frank Bonada. I think I'm just Frank Bonada now on Twitter. And follow LowKick MMA on all socials as well. We've got loads of content, including Tim's stuff, my stuff, Ross, the whole team. So subscribe, and we'll be back next week.
Make sure to subscribe to the LowKick MMA YouTube channel for all the latest news, event previews, and interviews with some of the biggest stars in MMA.